What's up guys, I am Egomi, and this is an in-depth sound design tutorial on how I created the lead synth melody in Headless. Alright, here's the lead synth. Okay, so I created this synth in Razor by Native Instruments, and I'm going to turn off all of these modules and build this synth up from scratch so you can see exactly what I did and why I did it. Alright, so the synth started with a pulse wave, or a square wave, which sounds like this. And I thought that was a really good place to start because it's very basic, very Mario. And then after that, I added a second oscillator, which is called number pitch bend, and it sounds like this. It's very high pitched, and what I did is I added an LFO to it, so it changes the pitch bend as I play it, which makes it sound like this. And I think this is really important whenever you're sound designing, is to have some sort of sound that has movement in it. So this has that randomness factor, and together it sounds like this. The next thing I did is I added a low pass filter just to cut out some of the highs. And following that, I added a second filter called gaps. And this is really unique to Razor. What it does is it takes out certain harmonics, and I'll show you. So if I have a sound that sounds like this, as I turn it up, you can see that it takes out certain harmonics. And likewise when I go the other way. And that is how I got this sound. The next thing I did was I added a dissonant effect called string, which is pretty subtle, but if I turn off the second oscillator, you might be able to hear it more. So here's before, and here's after. And you can tell there's just a little bit of movement in the sound. And so adding that in just helps create that randomness that I like. The next thing I did was I added a reverb to make it sound like this. Now, since I didn't want reverb all the time, I hooked it up to the mod wheel so that when I played a note and I turned the mod wheel, the reverb would turn down. And then the next thing I did was I added a rectifier, which is just a little bit of distortion. And that was how I created the synth patch. The next thing I did was I added an LFO during the verses, and all it does is it affects the volume on this slope, and it sounds like this. Before, after, and I thought that sounded pretty cool. So I'll bypass that. The next thing I did was I hooked up a lot of my knobs on this keyboard to different parameters within my synth module. So for example, if you watch the string and the rectification amount, when I turn this knob, it changes it. And the way that sounds when I play it is like this. Likewise, this fourth one here changes the low pass. And this one changes the gaps. And all of these knobs do different things. And what that allowed me to do is I could just loop that melody throughout the entire track. Then as it would play through the track, I could just turn these knobs and change it so that the sound would never get boring. So one example of that is during the second verse when I do something like this. I think setting up the parameters to these knobs was really important, and even though it took a little bit of time, it allowed me to have much more creativity, and it was just plain fun. So I know for a lot of you producers, this could be intimidating, especially for you guys who maybe just use loops or who haven't really delved into sound design all that much. And yes, it can be confusing, but honestly, looking back, I think it was so worth taking the time to sit down and just pick one synth and learn it. I have lots and lots of different synths that I do not know how to use very well, and all I can do is just pull up presets and mess around with turning different knobs. There's only a couple of synths, this one included, that I really sat down and learned. And I would challenge you guys as producers to just sit down and learn one synth. Just pick one that you use ordinarily and learn all the knobs in it and learn really how it works. I've noticed that for me, it's opened up worlds of possibility in creation and sound design. And I think it would really help you guys out too. And it's just fun. I wouldn't have been able to create this sound had I not just sat down and learned, okay, what does this knob do? You know, if I turn this or if I turn this. You know, if I hadn't sat down and took the time to learn it, I wouldn't have been able to create this sound. So hopefully this video is not intimidating at all. I hope that it's inspiring, if anything, and that you guys are excited to go and maybe open up a synth and just mess around with the knobs, turn things, and see what they do. So I hope you guys learned something about sound design. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button, and if you're interested in these tutorials, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.